Welcome to Readability. I'm your host, Ashley Kelson. In Readability, we read all kinds of stories, from short storybooks to large chapter books. You could sit down with family or just lay back and relax. Every Saturday, we read, review, and recommend different books for your listening pleasure. I really hope you enjoy Readability. Let's get started. Hello, my fellow readers. I wanted to continue the Wild Robot by Peter Brown reading series we've had here on Readability, so I hope you guys enjoy. It's been a while since I've done this. Hello, my fellow readers. I wanted to continue the Wild Robot by Peter Brown reading series we've had here on this podcast. So, I really hope you guys enjoy. It's been a while since I've read this book on Readability. So, for our 25th episode, wow, I've been doing this for 25 weeks. That's kind of crazy to think about. I wanted to bring it back for all of you. Without further ado, here we go with The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. Sarah and Gita, wait. Frick, I already forgot to say it. Chapter 8, The Pine Cones. If you stand in a forest long enough, eventually something will fall on you. And Roz had been standing in the forest long enough. A gentle wind whispered through the treetops, and then, thunk, a pine cone bounced off her head. The robot looked down and watched the pine cone roll to a stop. It seemed harmless, so Roz went right back to doing nothing. A few hours later, a gust of wind rushed through the treetops, and then, thunk, the robot looked down as another pine cone rolled away. And then a few hours after that, a howling wind tore through the treetops. It bent trunks and shook branches, and then thunk, 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 pine cones began raining down. Thunk, thunk. Roz felt something like annoyance. Thunk. She quickly scanned the area for somewhere safe from pine cones. And she spotted a perfect place when she looked up at the huge, rocky shape that towered above the forest. Chapter 9, The Mountain. Roz was now stomping her way up the mountain. Dense forests and rocky outcrops forced the robot to zigzag and backtrack. But after an hour of steady hiking, she arrived at the craggy mountain peak. Grasses and flowers and shrubs sprouted from every pocket of soil. But there were no trees at the top. Roz was safe from those annoying pine cones. She dusted herself off and then carefully climbed up into a leaning slab of stone to the very highest peak of the entire mountain. The robot slowly turned her head completely around. She saw the ocean stretching onto the horizon in every direction. And in that moment, Roz learned what you and I have already known since the beginning of the story. In that moment, Roz finally realized that she was on an island. Roz looked down and surveyed the island. Starting from the sandy southern point, the island grew wider and greener and hillier until it finally jutted up into the rocky cone of a mountain. In some places, the mountain fell away, leaving sheer cliffs. A waterfall rushed one of the cliffs and fed into a river that wound its way through the great meadow in the center of the island. The river flowed past wildflowers and ponds and boulders and then disappeared into the forest. Blurry shapes suddenly cut through the robot's vision. She refocused her eyes and saw vultures circling above the foothills. Then she noticed lizards warming themselves on a distant rock. A badger peeked out from a berry bush. A moose waded through the stream. A flock of sparrows turned in perfect unison above the trees. The island was teeming with life, and now had a new kind of life. A strange kind of life. Artificial life. Okay, this is a pretty interesting section to read because we did learn a lot more about the island Roz is on. She also found out that she was on an island, so that's a plus. We learned just a little bit more about Roz herself, how she actually gets annoyed by things humans would too, like pine cones hitting your head from the wind. That's pretty annoying. We learned about what kinds of animals were on the island and what it really looks like. Even though not too much action came out of these chapters, we did learn a lot. Well, for the character thoughts, I would mention the animals, but we really don't know them. As for Roz, she's pretty bland as usual, and that's not a bad thing because she's a robot. We learned another human-like feature she has, though. She gets annoyed by things. Here are some questions I'm still wondering. Is Roz planning to stay at the island? If she wants to get out, how is she going to do so? Is she going to build a boat or something? Do the animals think she's a threat to their home? Is Roz possibly going to be found by the people who made her? And finally, can Roz malfunction at the island? I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Readability. It was pretty fun continuing this mini-series we have on here, and I hope you're looking forward to the next one. Without further ado, here is our official Readability ending. Thank you for joining me, your host, Ashley Kelson, on Readability. It has been a really great time, and I hope you join me again next week. Remember, every Saturday we either read, review, or recommend a book for your listening pleasure. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Keep reading, folks. Bye!